Unique is Horoscope, Vettius Valens, and the Gospel of Faith. Alexandria, Egypt, 139. Sometime during the early centuries of the Roman Empire, a handful of disciples were inspired to write down the mystic teachings of the otherwise obscure sect. Their beliefs originated in the Near East, but these authors chose to write in Greek and Latin so as to spread their message to as wide as to as wide an audience as possible. Although these faith followers were persecuted and his practice outlawed, adherence to his teachings spread rapidly across the Roman Empire, outlasting the empire itself and ultimately becoming one of the most widespread beliefs in the world today. Is this Christianity, or maybe astrology? In fact, this sketch applies perfectly well to both, and the similar backstories of the two provide an important insight into what sort of creature astrology is. Astrology, despite claims of pure pedigree from Egyptian pharaohs or Babylonian high priests, is actually a Roman era myth. A perfect portrait of this was a display in Alexandria, Egypt, during the pre-dawn hours of Sunday, July 20, in the year 139. Only the text's memorial remains, but with a bit of imagination we can picture a small group of temple priests together with a few astronomers and maybe seen a local official or two keeping vigil throughout the night. Then the peak hues of daybreak illuminated the morning sky. Each of these observers verified that Sirius, the dog star and the brightest of all the stars, could be seen making its first appearance in the sky that year, rising above the eastern horizon just moments ahead of the sun. Since that morning was also the first day of Egyptian year, the first day of the month of Thoth, this meant that the Egyptian calendar had finally returned to what was believed to be its original astronomical configuration. It had only taken 1460 years. In other words, the last time Sirius had risen this way on the first day of Thoth, it was 1322 BC, just 16 years after the solar eclipse which signaled the demise of the pharaoh Akhenaten and his scandalous son cult. The ancient Egyptian calendar, as mentioned previously, was actually 365 days long. This is fair but not terribly precise approximation of the two astronomical solar year, which is closer to 365.24 days. The calendar of the Roman Empire, the one introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 BC, used leap years to arrive at a better estimate of 365.20.25 days. When compared to the Julian calendar, therefore, the Egyptian calendar wandered in time, skipped ahead by 1 day every 4 years. At rate it takes 365 times 4 equals 1040 years for the Julian calendar and Egyptian calendars to come back into alignment. Yet, while the Egyptian calendar was notoriously bad at staying in sync with the seasons, its complete lack of leap years and other cylindrical clutches made it an ideal timekeeper for long-term astronomical calculations. For this reason, it was the ancient Egyptian calendar and not any of its more accurate but more complicated successors which was used by both Ptolemy and Copernicus in the groundbreaking astronomy books. Remarkably, these two astronomers are themselves perioded in time by a nearly complete 1460-year cycle of the Egyptian calendar. Yet, how could the Egyptians of Ptolemy's time, let alone of Akhenaten's, manage to serve something inherently imprecise as the dawn rising of Sirius to the precision of a single day? Most likely, they couldn't. The reappearance of the dog star Sirius had long been taken as a handy way to make the dog days of the late summer and fatally the annual flooding of the Nile. But the once widely held theory that Egyptians base their calendar around the star is a little far-fetched. It's more plausible to imagine that the whole idea of a 1460-year zodiac cycle, solstice being a Greek name for Sirius, was simply invented by these latter-day astronomers of Alexandria who saw in the happy coincidence of its completion during their lifetimes a good excuse to have a celebration. Quite possibly Ptolemy himself, likely the chief expert in such matters, had a hidden hand in their festivities. Whatever in whatever its historical origins, a Zodiac cycle celebration would have been an easy sell to the Romans, who no doubt appreciated being associated with notions of eternity. In short order, the Alexandrian being issued a batch of commemorative coins sporting each of the zodiac signs and the planetary rules. This must have been by a bit like our modern characters commemorating each of the US states and territories. The Bible that the zodiac was actually Babylonian and therefore has no connection whatsoever with the Egyptian calendar would likely have been met with blank stars, particularly among Alexandria's overlords in Rome, for whom an ignorance of astronomy was almost a badge of honor. As Virgil wrote in Aeneid, Rome's national epic. Others will hammer out the breathing bronze more softly, so I believe at next talk from marble living faces, they will argue the courses better and trace the sky's meanderings with a ray and see which stars are rising. You Roman, fear not to rule the nations by command. This will be your arts to impose virtue where there's peace, to spread the conquered and crush the proud. And if part of the Roman art a ruling was to force out of the cultures of its conquered peoples a unified civilization, the no city offered a more impressive display on this than Alexandria, the true multicultural capital of Roman Egypt. The lighthouse of the world. Astrologers in Roman times boasted of an unbroken tradition stretching back 432,000 or 730,000 or maybe even 1,440,000 years. And yet, as we saw in chapter 2, the oldest known object that can possibly be called a horoscope dates only to 410 BC, all things considered. This shockingly recent. Even ignoring astrologers' primordial pretensions, 410 BC is thousands of years after the pyramids, Stonehenge, and all of the other mystical sites supposed to showcase the astronomical savvy of their architects. What that cuneiform tablet of 410 BC really tells us is that astrology was still in its infancy when Babylon, along with all of its astral traditions, fell to Alexander the Great as a spoil of his conquest of Persia, a conquest foreshadowed, it was believed, by the lunar eclipse of 331 BC. The marching of Alexander's armies kicked off a tremendous east-west cross-pollination that spread to every corner of the ecumen, that is, the inhabited world as it was known to the Greeks. From Egypt to the borders of India, a broad swath of peoples who were not themselves Greek subsequently adopted the Greek or Hellenic language as an international language for politics, trades, and ideas. For this reason, the age as a whole has come to be called Hellenistic. While literature lovers have tended to look down on the Hellenistic period, the term itself suggests a cheap knockoff of the Hellenic Golden Age of Plato and Sophocles. Exactly the opposite is true for those of us excited about science. practically even scientific advance of antiquity happened during this time. Euclid got his elements of geometry, Archimedes developed his principles of mechanics, Eratosthenes measured the circumference of the earth, and Hipparchus discovered the precision of the equinoxes all within 200 years after Alexander's death. Many of the achievements of Hellenistic science were the direct result of the integration of knowledge from the non-Greek speaking civilizations of the ancient world into a common Greek language framework. Hipparchus, for instance, made extensive use of Babylonian astronomical data when constructing his model of the moon's orbit. But what about the rivers? In particular, to what extent did astrology, so often regarded as a local Babylonian specialty, rely upon Greek or other foreign ingredients, given the relative simplicity of the few horoscopes that survived from before Alexander's time? The answer is probably a lot. The eclectic fusing of ideas and traditions that characterizes the Hellenistic age to, is often referred to as syncretism, and as a fitting legacy to the young conqueror who dreamed of joining East and West. The city to which he gave his name, though never lived to see, grew to become syncretism's pulsing heart. Renowned for its library and emblematic for its lighthouse, Alexandria was by Roman times the undisputed scientific capital of the ancient world. Whereas a budding Roman gentleman might, like Cicero, run off his education by studying philosophy in Athens, Alexandria stood out for its unrivaled accomplishments in mathematics, science, and engineering. The previously mentioned Euclid, Archimedes, and Eratosthenes live either some or all of their lives there. To this list, we can add Hero, the creator of a steam engine and various animatronic robots, Diophantus, one of the early pioneers of algebra, and of course the great astronomer himself, Ptolemy. Alexandria was no less celebrated for the cultivation of knowledge in its especially more mystical forms. Under the tolerant gaze of Serapis, the syncretistic half-Egyptian, half-Greek hybrid god, a great translation of the Hebrew Bible called the Septuagint was commissioned for the library there. Hypatia, the most famous female mathematician prior to modern times, was leader of the Neoplatonists there, and Saint Anthony fought off the devil's temptations in the deserts lying just west of there. So it's hardly surprising that, far more than in any other city, astrology was able to flourish there too. Indeed, it's in the Septuagint, which was composed in Alexandria in the 3rd or 2nd century BC, that we find one of the oldest and certainly one of the most influential instances of the word astrologer to carry its modern meaning in the prophet Isaiah's warning to the virgin daughter of Babylon, her advisors, whom the Hebrew text calls Hovre Shamanim, literally observer of the heavens, become astrologers, when translated into Greek. Whether Matthew the evangelist was aware of this usage is unclear, but in his gospel, also written in Greek, he chose an altogether different word to describe the emissaries from the east who, at the appearance of a star, came to worship the newborn king of the Jews. The term that's found throughout Matthew chapter 2 is Magi, the traditional name for the finance of Persia and also the root of the modern word magic. Among the ancient astrologers whose names do you know, an impressive plurality called Alexandria their home. At the top of this list are Thrasyllus and Balbillus, the personal astrologers to the emperors in Rome. Balbillus, as mentioned earlier, even became head of the Library of Alexandria and later governor of all Egypt. And of course, there's Ptolemy too. Thus, from the corridors of power to the epics of science, some of Alexandria's most illustrious citizens were themselves practitioners of the astral art. If pressed, it is likely that Each would have pointed to astrology's extreme antiquity as one of the reasons for its success, and yet to compare the simple horoscopes of Babylon with an Alexandrian product like Ptolemy's Biblos is to recognize immediately how much astrology had changed. Far from pristine Babylonian import, astrology is much better understood as a hybrid product of Hellenistic syncretism, part Babylonian, part Greek, with perhaps a dash of Egyptian thrown into the mix. Or to put it another way, if Babylon is where astrology was born, then Alexandria is where it came of age. In particular, Alexandria is where two of the most important astrology books to survive from antiquity were likely written. The first of these, the Tetrabiblos, is a book we've already met. The second, though far less known, is in almost every respect a far more interesting read. This is a book called Anthologies, the work of an astrologer named Vettius Valens, a bouquet of astral flowers. Anthology is a Greek word that means a collection of flowers. The astrological anthologies of Vettius Valens are, appropriately, not so much a systematic treatise of a potpourri of astrological advice and algorithms gathered up over several decades. Valens was probably about 20 years younger than Ptolemy, but were authors of astrology books, and both lived in Egypt during the 2nd century after Christ. Valens never specifies where in Egypt he lived, although Alexandria would seem the most likely choice. Strangely enough, there's no indication that either was aware of the other's existence, and their books on astrology couldn't be more different. The Tetrabiblos come across as an overview of astrology for the philosophically curious but otherwise mad public reader. The anthologies, meanwhile, reads like a practical guide for the working astrologer, and where I can see the Tetrabiblos sitting impressive and unread on an elegant bookshelf, I imagine the astrology smudged and torn from constant use, with impromptu notes, sketches, and fragile calculations scribbled on every page. Astrology, however much it misdirects, with its talk of stars and planets, is an art whose true subject matter has always been the stories of actual people. It's this element above all that makes the anthologies such a fascinating read. Its pages are bustling with astrological accounts of real, albeit unnamed, unknown people's lives. These are refreshing contrast to the sterile generalities of the Tetrabiblos. All the more so, since there's no better way to learn a technical subject than to follow a series of work samples. Thus, while the Tetrabiblos might teach you the doctrines of astrology, the anthologies taught you how to do astrology. This is invaluable for our understanding, since astrology is, and always has been, a technical craft, and not merely a set of beliefs dissociated from the practice of that craft. Regarded in this light, astrology's principal about product is of course astrology's principal product is, of course, the horoscope. The anthologies preserve a remarkable 123 unique horoscopes, each one like an astrological epitaph for a once living, breathing, Greek-speaking inhabitant of 2nd century Roman Egypt, page 7. This makes the anthologies a uniquely precious document, not only for illustrating the technical practices of Roman-era astrology in unprecedented detail, but also providing one of the most intimate slices of daily life from the time. For the horoscopes, we learn such voyeuristic details about these individuals' lives as their financial ups and downs. In the first periods of times, he had great political prestige and advice and positions of trust, but later he was brought down in life and became a vagabond. The health issues this person has mange on the hand and leprosy and lesions on the body, and how they died. This person died in the bed, choked to death in water. Some of the horoscopes are charmingly colorful. He was a dancer in his 25th year, He was put in confinement in the cause of a public riot, but he was defended before the governor released through the help of fines and the entity of the court and became more esteemed. Some of them are touching. This person has begun this person began as deputy governor, but falling into the governor's disfavor in his 34th year was condemned to the quarry. However, his wife accompanied his affectionately comforted him and shared his possessions with him. And some of them are just with this person was sought out admirably. For a book that focuses so much on the lives of others, Valens is sunshine about sharing a few details of his own. His life story, as befits his professional calling, seems to have fully embodied with the syncretistic spirit of his times. The manuscripts call him Vettius Valens of Antioch, indicating the capital of Roman Syria, and according to Ptolemy, the center point of the four quadrants of the ecumen as the city of his birth, founded by one of Alexander's victorious generals. Antioch in Roman times was a major trading hub teeming with temples of the Greek and Semitic deities and lately home to one of the largest communities of Christians in the empire. Antioch's patron was the goddess Fortune or Tyche in Greek, the original Lady Luck. Her tutelage evidently left a lasting impression of Valens, as he would later write of the absolute supremacy of fortune and fate in all things. Yet, for all its worldliness, Antioch apparently proved too provincial for Valens. After wandering through many lands, he doesn't say which, his thirst for knowledge brought him ultimately to Egypt. There it seems, no different from today, that the quest from spiritual enlightenment could be a frustrating and, above all, expensive undertaking. Valens writes of the many frauds and charlatans he encountered who were happy to take his money but were incapable of guiding him any closer to the truth. Seeking a retreat from the world, he even spent a period living as part of monkeys and possibly Christian common. In addition to what Valens says about himself explicitly, there is a specific horoscope in the anthologies that is used as an example no fewer than 21 separate times. A recent tradition has been to identify this as Valens' out. So we can add to Valens' biographical sketch that he was conceived on May 13 in the year 119 and that he was born on February 8 in the year 120. His mother predeceased his father at the age of 34. He walked about, was a man of great men, and was in mortal danger because of a woman. At the age of 35, he survived a storm at sea, but was nearly captured by pirates. In short, Vettius Valens appears to have lived the romantic, swashbuckling life one would expect of any author of a book about astrology. But as Valens would come to appreciate, no matter how far you wander, you cannot escape your destiny. Astrology had called him, and he was duty bound to follow. His reading of his own horoscope helped him recognize that he would never become rich, famous, or powerful. I know myself, he writes. I know the foundation which my fate has assigned me, and I know that it's impossible for anyone, contrary to fate, to become different from what he is. According to Valens, suffering can be overcome and balance achieved, but only by learning to accept one's lot in life. I have abandoned all vain hopes and thoughts, he tells us victoriously, and I have kept the laws of fate. This rather bleak outlook of life. This rather bleak outlook on life, Valens goes on to compare it to being an intelligent slave or cruel master, if actually pretty characteristic of astrology throughout its history, with the notable exception of our modern, much more cheerfully variety. In the ancient debate as to the existence of free will, of NATO versus NATO, astrology has long just loved insisting upon an extreme form of called mathematical determinism. Oddly enough, it was this dispiriting attitude that probably helped astrology permeate the Roman world as the role yes it did. Although the Roman Empire never had an official religion, never that is, if adopting Christianity in 380, Stoicism had a pretty good run, so much so that even the very word Stoic tends to conjure up the image of a stern, betrothed Roman, although Stoicism was the astrology and another Hellenistic import. So with Manilius' poem Astronomica, Stoicism and astrology were a natural combination, fundamental to Stoic philosophy and in complete harmony with astrology was the total denial of free will and the corresponding belief in all-powerful faith. To the Stoic, a completely deterministic worldview implied that everything in the universe was linked together, that each past action was bound to each future one through cosmic sympathy. Does this sound new agey? Perhaps it does at first until you realize how completely antithetical it is to the idea of self-improvement, God of transcendence. Everything is controlled by fate and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just not a message that's going to motivate you to head to the yoga studio at 6 in the morning. It's a message that may, however, make it easier to accept that you were never going to do yoga at 6 in the morning anyway. Astrology as an experimental science. Perusing the nativities in the anthologies, it's difficult not to wonder how far our lives really are controlled by fate, and if so, whether that fate is included in the timing of our birth. I've long had a particular personal interest in this question because, as luck or fate would have it, one of my dearest friends happens to have been born on the same day, in the same year, in the same city, in the same hospital, and in even the very same hour as me. In fact, according to our birth certificates, we were born only 8 minutes apart. Yet, despite being born within feet of each other, it wasn't until high school that I was finally reunited with my long lost astronomical twin in our high school's Latin club, no less. As time has gone by, I find myself forced to admit that our lives really do share some striking similarities, starting with our mutual appreciation of all things that enroman each of us. Then went on to study physics. My friend Lazarus, myself plus Mas, each of us subsequently worked as a series of technical jobs in similar industries, and more recently, each of us has become especially involved in math and science outreach. Most improbably of all, however, we were both lately given to the opportunity to write a book. My astral twin, you see, is none other than the talented and glamorous Olivia Koski, who, along with her co-author Jana Griffith and illustrator Steve Thomas, recently published the really charming vacation guide to the solar system, Science for the Service Space Traveler. In fact, it was Olivia's book that led to a sequence of unlikely connections to the inception of the book you now have in your hands. Some of your outfits weren't linked before, they certainly are now. Of course, if someone asks, I could just as easily make a separate list of all the ways my life and Olivia's have been very different. So, have the stars been guiding our paths or haven't they? Unfortunately, I don't hold out much hope that this little ongoing astrology experiment, otherwise known as my life, will lead to any definitive answers. Statistically speaking, a sample size of two, Olivia's life and my own, isn't enough to reveal anything more than a few curious coincidences. And in the grand scheme of things, how different can we expect any two people's live to be if they were born and raised in a similar time and place? This point, however, is one of the reasons I find the anthologies exciting, since they contain the most detailed collection of ancient horoscopes. The anthologies gives us the ability to compare side by side the lives of ancient and modern individuals born under the same configuration of stars. Might not the hidden influence of a set destiny reveal itself if we could observe its effects repeated in both an Egyptian living in Roman times and, say, an American living today? For a theoretical standpoint, the fact that astrology is impossible according to the laws of physics would seem to be all there is to say on the matter. There are only two scientifically recognized forces by which a distant object like a planet can influence us here on Earth: gravity and electromagnetism, and the effects of both of these forces can be calculated and shown to be absurdly small. Indeed, at the moment of birth, the gravitational pull of the obstetrician on a baby will be stronger than that from any planet, and his or her heat and reflected light will be far greater than any planetary radiation. The problem with this argument, however, is that there are a great many things which have been discovered: quantum mechanics, continental drifts, the platypus, that were also theoretically impossible right up until they weren't. As someone who is of a more experiment mindset, I would want to know, in addition, to what extent astrology is or is not supported by observation and experimental evidence. Yet here we run into problems as well. It's often difficult to test astrology's claims because it's often difficult to pin down that precisely astrology's claims actually are, especially as they apply to any specific testable scenario. If a forecast fails to unfold as predicted, there's never a lack of countervailing nuances of to blame. The slippery quality of astrology is exactly what the philosopher of science Karl Popper had in mind when he formulated his famous criterion that the difference between science and pseudoscience is that science must be falsifiable. Science, specifically, Popper contrasted Einstein's theory of relativity against Mach's theory of history, the psychoanalytic theories of Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler, and astrology. Einstein's theory had led to a testable prediction that the bending of light by gravity ought to be noticeable as a slight shift in the appearance positions of stars when measured near the sun. This prediction, we very easily could have proven false, was instead dramatically confirmed in observations made by Arthur Eddington during the total solar eclipse of May 1919. Meanwhile, according to Popper, there was no scenario, no observable fact of evidence that would force a Marxist, a Freudian, an Adlerian, or an astrologer to admit their theory was wrong. This made these ideas, Popper contended, more like narrative myths than scientific theories. Popper's idea of falsifiability has sparked decades of debate as to whether this is a meaningful way to separate science and pseudoscience. Is it really that easy to draw a line between the two? Is it even impossible to identify a set of characteristics shared by all the sciences, from physics to anthropology, that is not shared by other endeavors like history or cooking? And if it's not possible, does it still make sense to talk about science as a unified concept? To muddy the waters, astrology, at least historically, has made plenty of falsifiable claims. Indeed, we've already counted several in this book. Does this mean that astrology used to be a science? Whenever the line between science and pseudoscience lies, if indeed one can be drawn at all, it's worth noting that throughout history, many astrologers were committed to the idea that astrology's validity should derive not from the divinity of its sources, nor from the antiquity of its traditions, but instead of experimental proof. One of those astrologers was Vettius Valens. I have experienced much, have expended much toil, and have reasonably examined and tested what I have compiled. Experience is better and more reliable than more hearing, because one who hears has only an agreeable and doubtful grasp. One who has heard experience has tried many things and has remembered them, validates what he has experienced. Yet if you are Vettius Valens and you want to examine the complete arc of some words like astrology, how do you even begin to count, let alone analyze, all of the potential correlations? The problem is hopelessly ill-defined. Nevertheless, if that if that's the route you insisted on taking, it's pretty clear that the first thing you'd want is data, lots of it. I think Valens understood this intuitively, which is why he says about comparing his collection of horoscope case studies. Quite frankly, nothing could be more scientific. Valens 123 horoscopes were anywhere near the number he would have needed for the huge task he set himself. But that doesn't mean they can be put to good use, especially today. The luxury of letting all that data marinate for 2000 years is that, in a curious way, it has reduced violence problem to a more manageable size. Consider, for example, the helpless individual who appears in the anthologies under the heading Violet Deaths. His horoscopes his horoscope recounts only the configuration of the planets at the moment of his birth, and that is the mist took the form of being drawn to the lions. Would another person born into the same horoscope be doomed to be similarly devout? Empirically, the most direct way to answer this question would be to examine the lives of multiple individuals who share the same horoscope and count how many of them were eaten by lions. And this is something we can do, at least in principle, since Valens has already done the hardest part. He's let us know exactly what such horoscopes should like. The meaning of horoscope. The word horoscope, no surprises here, is Greek. It comes from hora, which denotes a season, occasion, or a specific moment in time. This is as distinct from chronos, which refers to an interval of time which a clear with a clear beginning, middle, and end. The word horoscopos, the word horoscopos, therefore, literally means moment watcher. To be a horoscope, that is, to be a moment watcher, is to have the ability to distinguish each moment from the moment that came before and the moment that follows directly behind. Here, what defines a moment? Astrologically speaking, this moment is different from another moment because the cosmic influences you are receiving right now are different from the cosmic influences you would receive at the different time, indeed at a different place. To specify an astrological moment, therefore, is to specify the celestial configuration which gives rise to that moment influences. And this is precisely what our scenes of heaven do. They illustrate exactly how the heavens appear at a particular instant in time as viewed from a particular location on earth. What we do really need all the information in our sims just to mark a moment. In fact, quite a bit of it's redundant. For instance, if you know your epoch, that is the celestial location of the cast of Aries, then there are formulas to convert back and forth being encrypted in equatorial coordinates. You don't need both sexes. If you know your latitude and longitude, that you can easily convert between ecliptic, equatorial, and horizontal coordinates. The question arises: what's the minimum amount of information we need to characterize an astronomical moment? Vettius Valens gives us the answer. According to the anthologies, charts and pages of astronomical data required to cast a horoscope. The first seven of these are the ecliptic longitudes of the seven classical planets. The eighth and final item is the part of the ecliptic which at the same moment is rising above the eastern horizon. In modern astrology, that is the quantity known as the ascendant. But I am willing to bet that you are more familiar with its ancient Greek name, the horoscope, horoscopos. There are there are a handful of examples in the anthologies where the egg quantity is just listed as specified to the nearest degree or even fraction of a degree. However, in the vast majority of cases, 87 out of 123, Valens is content to give only the whole zodiac signs. This suggests a template for what can be considered the minimal but still complete information needed to specify an astrological moment. By way of example, using this template, the characterized by the way of by the way by way of example, using this template, this chapter sim of heaven for the Celtic New Year at Alexandria can be reduced to the following sentence: Saturn in Aquarius, Jupiter in Gemini, Mars in Scorpio, Sun in Cancer, Venus in Cancer, Mercury in Cancer, Moon in Libra, horoscope in Cancer. And if we agree to always list these eight quantities in the same order, then we can express this astrological moment more economically as just a sequence of eight zodiac signs. The last sign is this in the sequence is the horoscope robber. It isn't tied to a celestial body like the previous seven signs, why which is why I separated it out with a dash. It also plays a different role in characterizing an astrological moment. Although the positions of the sun, moon, and planets are always moving around the ecliptic, in practice these motions are sufficiently slow. It takes Saturn nearly 30 years to complete an orbit, for example, that you can easily regard them as fixed for the span of a day. The horoscope, meanwhile, tracks the much more rapid daily revolution of the sky. Over the course of a day, the horoscope will be found in each of the 12 zodiac signs in order, but precisely when and for how long will depend on your location. In our 8 sign sequence, therefore, the first 7 signs can be thought of as defining the cosmic part of an astrological moment. These are data that are valid for the whole group for the whole day. By contrast, the sign, the horoscope divides the local part of an astrological moment since its validity encompasses only a part of the globe for a part of the day. Quite clearly, the word horoscope has a wonderful multivalency in astrology. In one of its usages, the astrologer himself could be the horoscope or moment watcher, since he was the only one to track the changing terrestrial moments. More commonly, timekeeping instruments were referred to as horoscopic, since they could be thought as tracking, they could be thought of as tracking the moments as they pass. It's in the sense that the word horoscope came to be equated with the rising sign. If you imagine the horoscope as an invisible clock and extending its word from your location as far as you can see, then this hand will point to the zodiac signs as they ascend above the eastern horizon by specifying the sign in which the horoscope, in the sense of the word, is located. You therefore customize your astrology to a given time and place in a way that merely listing the positions of the sun, moon, and planet over the centuries, and in the way that parts that can stand over the whole. The meaning of a horoscope is expanded to signify not just the rising zodiac sign, but the entire configuration of the heavens, a graphical diagram of the configuration, and finally the predictions and life advice which derive from the diagram. but these shifts in definition serve also to reveal the astrological core of a horoscope that has never changed. The sense that there is a unique cosmic energy permeating its unique moment of time and space. The astrology machine. As the words themselves affirm, the horoscope, meaning the rising sign, was the indispensable part of a horoscope, meaning the astrological assessment of a moment. Unfortunately, for the math public, however, computing the horoscope that is the rising star was also the most mathematically challenging operation in all of astrology. In fact, nearly all the books of in fact, nearly all of book 2 of Ptolemy's Almagest is occupied with precisely this problem, offering yet another example of how developments in astronomy were, to an extent that's too easily dismissed, frequently motivated by the technological demands of astrology. Accordingly, unless you were content to cast a horoscope without the horoscope, there was zero chance to you as an ancient astrologer could skip the math-heavy parts of your job description. On the bright side, though, the horridness of horoscope calculations highlights what a brilliant invention the astrolabe was, because what might previously have required several pages of calculations to determine was, by means of this instrument, dispatched with a simple mechanical rotation. How this works, consider in the life of an astrolabe figure 6.4. In fact, let's just the day with which we begin this chapter, the Zodiac New Year of July 2139, as experienced as the latitude and longitude of Alexandria, Egypt. After setting the background grid of azimuth and elevation lines to Alexandria's latitude, we can fix the date by placing the sun at 24° Cancer. Since this is the ecliptic coordinate, which corresponds to July 20. The day's unfolding is now modeled simply by rotating the celestial sphere, here represented by the ecliptic cycle, clockwise around the instrument center. Sunrise, for example, will occur when the sun crosses over the eastern horizon. On the astrolabe, this is the R extending out to the left-hand side of the instrument and located just above the small numeral 1. The horoscope at all times is defined as the point of the ecliptic which intercepts the eastern horizon. Thus, at the moment of sunrise, the horoscope, just like the sun, is located in the zodiac sign of Cancer. The rest of the day follows the same pattern. Now, for instance, is modeled by rotating the ecliptic until the sun arrives at the center of the sky. Looking to where the ecliptic and eastern horizon intersect, we can read directly of the instrument. We can read daily of the instrument that the horoscope is now in Libra, and similarly for sunset horoscope in horizon, midnight horoscope in Taurus, and on or any other moment of the day. Note that throughout this exercise, this configuration of the planets on the ecliptic never change. It's unnecessary to recalculate the positions of the planets minute by minute or hour by hour. To see how the sky appears at different times of the same day, you need only to compute the planet's ecliptic coordinate once and then specify the rotation angle with the ecliptic or more generally celestial sphere max with respect to your location. Those familiar with modern astronomy might recognize this rotation angle as the local sidereal time. This is the angle which the vernal point makes with your local north-south meridian. It's like the same information is conveyed by the horoscope. The horoscope is the local sidereal times ancient analog. Recognizing this helps to clarify which knowing the horoscope was important. It communicated in one concise data point the orientation of the entire celestial sphere with respect to where you stood. The genius of the astrolabe is such that both quantities, the ancient horoscope and the modern local sidereal time, can be determined simply by looking at the instrument without any additional computation. It's not well known when the astrolabe first appeared on the scene, but well, Alexandria, of course, the publication of Ptolemy's Planisphère, proved that all of the theoretical machinery was in place to build one, and Ptolemy offers a few such hints that perhaps he may have done so. Theon, another Alexandrian astronomer and father of the mathematician Hypatia, is known to have written a treatise of the astrolabe around the year 400, but this work is not lost. Therefore, the award for the earlier surviving astrolabe manual goes to John Philoponus, a Christian theologian writing about around the year 550 and living in, you guessed it, Alexandria. So whether he did the astrolabe, the Ptolemy's time, or somewhat later, this amazing instrument is a genuine Alexandrian original and yet another example of the city's indispensable contributions to the astral arts and sciences. How unique is a horoscope really? As a poor and stubborn Taurus, if I happen upon the horoscope section of a magazine, I'm not going to waste my time reading about Aries or Leos. I want to know what's in store for me and my fellow zodiac boss. But these days, when even my choice of coffee is supposed to reflect my individual uniqueness, why should my horoscope leave me feeling no more special than merely 1 out of 12? It's quite flattering. Therefore, it considered that an ancient astrologer like Vettius Valens would agree that there's much more to me than just my sun sign. Actually, he insists there were precisely 7 more things to me. Following Valens' basic template, the sim of heaven for my birth figure 6.5 can be reduced to a simple sequence of zodiac signs. This is clearly more detailed that this clearly more detailed than just saying I'm a Taurus. But is it unique? Maybe I really am stub- maybe I really am stubborn since analyzing this question quickly because a fixation of mine as preliminary to the calculation ahead, it seemed sensible to caricate this sequence into alphanumeric format that's easier for humans and more importantly computers to read. Zodiac alphanumeric dictionary zodiac sign. So A and B are used here instead of 10 and 11 so that each digit is exactly one symbol in length. Anyone who has ever had an intimate conversation with a computer will immediately recognize this as simply hexadecimal notation. Expressed in this way, my birth horoscope now becomes the following 8 digit code 5411183. Having an ample opportunity to spread, sort and scrutinize these sequences, I found that the nickname zodiac code or Z code for short just seemed to stick. Thus, the question how unique is a horoscope can be reformulated more promisingly as how many possible Z codes are there. At first glance, if each of the eight digits of Z codes can take on any of 12 possible values, one for each of the 12 zodiac signs, then the total number of possible combinations would be this is almost correct except that there are certain planetary configurations which are physically impossible, specifically as seen from the Earth. Mercury can never be more than one sign away from the Sun, and Venus never more than 2 signs. For example, if the Sun is in Taurus, then the only 3 possible locations for Mercurius and Aries Taurus or Gemini, and Venus in the same example can only and Venus in the same example can only be in Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, or Cancer. So 5 possibilities. Knowing this behavior, the total number of sea codes is actually is for is 44,789,760, a big number or a small number. But it's a small number when you consider that there are nearly 7.6 billion people alive today. Thus, even if the complete set of Z codes was divided up evenly, each one would be still stacked about 200 people. Actually, you can expect your Z code to be much more crowded than that. Close to 400,000 people are born every day, and since they are constantly changing digit of Z code, the rising star, also known as the horoscope ascendant, cycles through all the possibilities once per day. A better estimate is that each Z code is set by upwards of 30,000 people. Evidently, a Z code isn't specific enough to serve as anyone's unique address within the cosmic continuum. Maybe 8 digits aren't enough. In fact, modern professional horoscopes commonly include the coordinates from lots of additional astronomical objects, some with a rich tradition, such as the ascending and descending lunar nodes, and some much more modern, such as Uranus, Neptune, and the larger asteroids. Unfortunately, none of this helps in the slightest to make your horoscope more unique. From our vantage point here on Earth, there's simply nothing moving in the sky farther than the rotating sky itself, and sky is most is accounted by the rising sign. The quantity becomes depreciated from how precisely you can specify a cosmic moment. Consequently, if you absolutely insist on setting your astronomical uniqueness, your only option is to report your cosmic data with higher precision than the whole zodiac sign. This conceptually has long been the astrological answer to the problem of twins who led very different lives. The Roman senator and astrologer Nigidius Vigulus colorfully compared the universe to wet clay spinning on a potter's wheel. No matter how quickly you make two marks, they will always appear some distance apart when the wheel stops. Indeed, the 8 minutes between my birth and Olivia Koski's the fastest moving astrological coordinate ascendant event form. That is about 1.7 degrees. Meanwhile, the fastest moving celestial body by moon advanced from 0.07 degrees. Thus, in principle, you could create a unique celestial serial number from yourself, even if this will be a bit unwidely in practice. But would it be worth the trouble for unique astrological identity to mean anything more than, say, your unique passport number? It would need to be the case that you share meaningful similarities with people whose horoscopes are meaningfully similar to yours. And at the bare minimum, how could this not include your Z code cousins? For my part, I am perfectly willing to accept that Olivia's and I are similar, perhaps even unusually so. But I can see why this should extend to the roughly 30,000 other people whose horoscope are, from practical purposes, indistinguishable from ours merely because we all happen to have been born at roughly the same moment. Then again, maybe I need to meet more of you. Alternatively, what if a horoscope, even if it doesn't quite seal our destiny, still offers a snapshot of the unique celestial energy which infuses a particular moment in time and space? And what if, in the way that the heavens wave pattern in time, the individuals with whom we share the strongest cosmic bond weren't born on the weren't born on the same days as us, but rather at some time in the past, at the moment when the celestial vibrations were the same as at your birth. Like the Assyrian astronomers who computed the renewal of the solar cycle, or thus now becomes one of determining how often the heavens repeat. And this is a question which can be answered exactly at least the precision of a sequence to this end. Specifically, I've compiled a list of every single sequence which has occurred in sequence from 10,000 BC to the present. When counting up to the number of distinct planetary configurations that have graced the heavens throughout history, the first step is to compute the total number of 7-digit or cosmic sequence, since this represent an astronomical state of the entire solar system. As it turns out, from 10,000 BC up to the year 2020, there has been to 2,515,019 distinct 7-digit sequence. Multiplying this number by 12 gives the total of full 8-digit sequence, since during each cosmic state, each of the 12 zodiac signs will be rising over some portion of the earth. The complete count of full sequence is therefore 30,180,228. It is to say, in a sense, from 10,000 BC today, there have been a total of 30,180,228 distinct astrological moments. The most eye-opening part of this whole analysis is how extraordinarily rare it reveals each of these moments to be. Out of the millions of sequences counted up over the last 12,000 years, 42.5% have never been repeated. Another 15.6% have been repeated only once. 5 sequences set the title for the most frequent appearances during this period, which is 10 times. Together, our list contains a total of 9,844,460 unique sequences, meaning duplicates are not counted. But this isn't even half of the nearly 45 million astronomically allowable sequences we computed earlier. And as a hard rule, no cosmic 7-digit C code can persist for no longer than 2.6 days, since that's the longest the moon ever spends in any one zodiac sign. The actual average duration, as determined by direct computation, turns out to be more like 1.75 days. Thus, even if the 7-digit sequence cycled through each level state one by one with no repetitions, spending 1.75 days in each, it would still take nearly 18,000 years to exhaust all the cosmic possibilities. What all of this means is that if you want to find the most recent time in history when a given celestial configuration occurred, you have to reach deep, oftentimes very deep, into the past. For example, the configuration of the Sun, Moon, and planets on Olivia's and my birthday, C code 5411183, last occurred on May 20, 2669 BC. That's right around the time when Imhotep is believed to have constructed the very first pyramid in Egypt. Given how rarely this sequence repeats, it's perhaps a bit more appealing to consider that if I were to share the same fate as anyone, maybe it was someone born on that balmy May day back in 2669 BC. At the very least, I'd like to think they could be a member of my extended cosmic family, my closest zodiac ancestor, so to speak. Having calculated when and for how long every Z code has occurred since 10,000 BC, it is straightforward to find the closest zodiac ancestors. For others, they too. Blood Egg shows this for every day of the year 1979. It's fascinating to see how widely the linkages spread out in time. The shortest arc contact connect several dates in the fall of 1979 back to the year 1742. The longest arcs correspond to dates when Z code is not repeated in our list, so all we can say is that the nearest zodiac ancestor was born something earlier than 1000 BC. Using this information, we can also find the nearest zodiac ancestors, for some especially foremost 1979ers, table 6.2. We already knew these people were one-of-a-kind originals, but it's fun to see her data and exactly how long it's been since the world has seen anyone like them, astrologically speaking, at least. It's awe-inspiring and humbling to consider that the configuration of these heavens on our birthday or any given birthday will almost certainly never repeat in our lifetime. Even the sum of human history has played out against the backdrop of just a small fraction of astrological possibilities. A horoscope in its best sense then can serve as a cosmic reminder of how special each moment is. At least that's how I like to look at them. Oh, and the poor fellow from the anthologies who was thrown the lions, Z got 3110BBB7. The next time anyone will be born with his unlucky horoscope will be March 30, 33, 36, 30, 33, 28, readers of my 30 of the 34th century decade.